Yes, we're here. Hello everyone. And seeing that there were no questions so far, then I am going with a question that was actually asked by a student in our training. And this question came through a yin yoga class. And if you've been doing yin yoga with me, then you might have noticed that there is, and this was actually a question, like, yin yoga is this very non-moving practice, this more static practice. How come that we still take savasana in between poses? How come we still, like, you're asking us to rest in between asanas? Did we not rest already enough by lying still for 5 minutes in a certain shape? And I find this actually a very good question, because that brings us to an aspect of this practice that is called rebound. And rebound is this time we set in between the poses or after a series of poses to let the body restore. And that restoring is a very important component of any yoga practice, of anything we do with our body, actually. Talking about the physical body, but eventually we're connecting ourselves to all the koshas, to all the different layers. So the physical body has a link and a response and a resonance to our energetic body, for example. But the energetic body has that same link and resonance and response to the physical body. And so we have our mental body, our emotional body, our spiritual body. It is all linked and responding and resonating with each other and vibrating together. So even though the emphasis is on rebounding the physical, maybe firstly, or this is maybe what you think, we need to relax after maybe doing our vinyasa practice, we go into final relaxation. We need to relax and give the body some rest so it can restore and balance. It's not only your muscles that can have a rest. There is way more going on there. And we also use that in yin yoga because it is not a practice where we do nothing. There's actually a lot happening, and we dive quite deep in our physical layer, but also in all the other layers. So I guess first of all, and this is also how I answered her question, is to create an understanding of how we use our physical body. And doesn't matter what kind of tissues we are training, because when we're moving the body, and let's say Hatha Vinyasa Yoga, the emphasis is a lot on stretching our muscle tissue. Now, stretching our muscle tissue, maybe there's a little resting pose somewhere in between, but most of the time this comes at the end of the practice, and then the savasana is like hopefully at least 5 minutes, hopefully even longer, because you've been moving for 50 minutes or an hour. So there needs to be a certain amount of time to let the body restore, or rebound, we call it in yin yoga. It's not much more to giving it space to find back balance. Not only to find maybe back your breath, which is also finding back your balance, but to really bring the body back to homeostasis, which is a dynamic balance by itself, but also to give space for the energy to fully flow everywhere through you. So restoring, rebounding, rebalancing. And this is a must, always. It doesn't matter if you go to the gym and you're just like pumping the iron, so to say, and creating more bulk in your muscles, the body needs to have enough time to restore. Speaking to a favorite yin colleague of mine yesterday, I actually asked him, because he's a bodybuilder and a fitness guy, we were joking about this restoring, and I said, for you, most likely there's like yin after every practice you do in the gym. And he said, yes, I go into my yin practice always after I've done my cardio and my fitness and my weightlifting, to create more space in everything that I contracted in a certain way. And then I also, even though thereafter, need to restore my body. So this comes back to how we stress our tissues, not stretch. Stretch is a way of stressing our tissues. But when I say stressing our tissues, I actually mean that we bring load to the tissues in the body. And it doesn't matter what tissues we're talking about. If it is muscle tissue, or is it more the fascial tissue or the connective tissue we work with in yin yoga. Anything we load through yoga practice, anything we stress through our yoga practice, or through going to the gym or going for a run, anything we load or stress in a certain way needs to restore as well. How we need to restore that and how long we need to restore that all depends on the practice you did, and also all depends on how the body is responding to the practice. So that is like a personal thing, but a given fact is that we need to restore what we've been stressing, because otherwise we never can find balance, homeostasis as we call that, this dynamic balance in the body. Now, coming back to yin yoga, because that's where the question came from. Now we have an understanding about that we're stressing our tissues, and that we then also need to restore these tissues in a given time. This might give an understanding now of why we rebound in yin yoga. And then personally, I see this rebounding having different benefits, which I personally, if I go on my practice, can feel on different layers of my being. And yes, I can give you an example of these different layers. So first of all, working through the physical layer. And this is also maybe what first comes to mind if we think about, okay, we are stressing our body in a certain way, we're bringing load to this body, we're working with gravity, all these things. And in yin yoga, we relax the muscle tissue as much as possible. We're tempering the muscle tone, the contraction in the body, taking the contraction out, letting the body already come to a more relaxed sense through the muscles. And we do that so we can eventually stress another type of tissue, which is the connective tissue and the fascia in the body. We find connective tissue around our joints, things like ligaments that are there to create stability and motion of a joint. Things like tendons that are the stiffer outer end of our muscles and hook into our bones. So we eventually, by contracting a muscle, we can pull on the next bone, and this is how a joint is moving. And these are all things you might normally not think about, but this is mechanically happening in your body. This is where we put stress around the joints in our yin yoga practice. And we can only do this when we relax in the body, so it doesn't have to stay in this protective, contracted state, and it lets go through the muscle tissue, and we can target this more connective tissue. And then there is all this fascia in the body. Eventually we can say that the bones, the ligaments, the tendons, the cartilage, the blood plasma in your body, and everything that connects your organs, your skin to your deeper being, that everything that connects, that binds and protects in the body, we call it fascia. It comes in the body like, I brought this, like certain sheets. You can see it if you ever ate a steak. You see the red-blooded muscle, and then you see all these white lines in the steak, or these chewy white bits. That is fascia. That makes the muscle able to slide along the next muscle, and that is there to give us our shape. That is there to provide pathways for our nervous system, for our lymphatic system, for our blood vessels, because otherwise we would be just a puddle of a lot of fluids. Because when we think about it, or maybe you learned in school that the teacher was saying your physical body is like roughly 70% of water. Now, yes, okay, my body is roughly 70% of water, but where is all this water then in my body? And yes, maybe when I go to the toilet, I connect to the water in the body. Maybe when I sweat, I connect to a certain way with the water in my body. But where's all the other like 69%? How is that stored in my body? Where is it? And this water is connected in this matrix of the fascia. Because the fascia by itself, it's not cells. It is what they call a extracellular matrix that binds things to the grid, to the network, to I don't know, you can see it as a spider web. And it binds things to the spider web, and that gives it eventually its form, its shape, its quality, its function, depending on the fibers that are in there, depending on the cells that are eventually in that matrix, depending on the amount of water that is bind to that matrix through proteins. It gives it its function and its quality. So all this water in our body is connected to this matrix, to this network. And I think I will post a little video underneath this live so you can see this network, this spider network moving in your body. It is very fascinating to see. So this is the physical layer we work with through Yin Yoga. And we work this by stimulating it through long static holds from a relaxed manner. So we can bring some load towards the joints, because there's a lot of connective tissue around the joints. And we can bring some stimulation also on all these other fascial sheets in the body. And you can see the body as this big sponge that is like filled up with this water. And we then create, by staying in a certain shape, tension and compression and torsion in the body. We sort of are squeezing that sponge for a long time, sometimes 2 minutes, but it's better to stay there like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes. I sometimes stay, I don't know, 15 minutes in certain shapes, using props and all these things, and being mindful that I'm not creating like huge discomfort. But then eventually, when it's time to come out of this shape, all this water is squeezed out. But all this water is still somewhere in the body, and the pressure is like on that place where there was like no space for the water. And then I open that sponge again, and all these fluids can bind itself through the matrix. This is how we hydrate ourselves. This is how we hydrate our network of fascia. This is how we hydrate our tissues. if we don't do that, we sort of shrivel up on the inside. And this is even though we're doing our best, hopefully, by also movement and circulation through other types of practices. Naturally, our state is to become more stiff in the body over time. This is our natural state. We sort of drying up towards the end of our life. This is also why you maybe see certain people with a stick going through the street and they're like really bent in their body. They cannot move the body much anymore. It seems very contracted and very stiff. And this is just because this matrix is not really hydrated. So coming back to rebounding, what happens is this, and all the fluids can run through the body in the rebound. Now we need to take our time with this, so the body can do that. So the body can bind itself to this network, to this matrix of fascia. And that we need time. Because if we would squeeze it right away somewhere again, then it doesn't have really time for that. So we need to allow that time, and this is why we rest in between poses, or why we rest after a series of poses where we've been squeezing in the same area, and just like building that pressure up in a certain way, and then doing a longer rebound to let the tissues restore. So staying longer in the poses means also we taking a little bit more time to rebound. And I'm checking my time. Yes. So another layer we can sense this through is our mindfulness layer. We have to bring that into our practice, and Yin Yoga is directing us there a lot to this mindfulness layer. I feel personally that Yin Yoga is a practice that is not only working through this physical, energetic body, but 50% of this practice is about mindfulness. It's asking me to be still in a certain shape, to observe what is happening there, to be the witness, to not judge, to not have any expectations of my practice, to be still, to be mindful, to not respond right away, to find the space in between my thoughts, the space in my breath, all these things. And then either being in the shape, practicing this, or coming out of the shape, becoming aware of all this sensory information the body is giving. This sensory information, first of all, coming through the fascia, because the fascia holds like, I don't know, 10 times more nerve endings, sensory nerve endings, than the muscles. So we're really sensing through this fascial network, this spider network in the body. So when you rebound, you take that rest to let everything balance. We can really become aware of this sensory information. And this is a little bit different than when you might go in certain meditations where you are guided towards like not going into the sensory information, going away from everything that is happening. While Yin a lot of times is stirring us more towards mindfulness, so becoming aware of all these sensory informations and the emotions that might rise, and feelings and our thoughts and all these things, and then practicing a non-response to that, but being aware and observing all this information that is coming through our nervous system. It's an amazing thing. And then, like personally, I can really feel this, like this shape shifting from that sponge, that squeeze sponge, to filling myself up again I'm sensing that flow of the fluids through the pathways in the body. I'm sensing that, I don't know, there's tingling going through the body, vibrations, a rush of heat or places that get cold. All kinds of sensory information that comes through, I don't know, visions I get, images, other things. And this really comes in the rebounds, when there's also information that has been stored in our tissues that gets released, that gets the ability to express itself. I don't know. I'm so fascinated by this practice that when we slow down and really open ourselves up to this practice, how much we can learn there, how much information is giving to us, like the shape shifting we can feel, the phase changing of the fluids in the body. But also just simply becoming aware, like, was I holding my breath actually? Because when we move through our practice, we might not so be aware of that, because we entertained through what we have to do, where to put our feet, where to put the hand, where to look with our drishti, all these things, which muscle we're stretching, what the hamstrings are doing, or I don't know, raise your arms up, all these things. But in yin, there's none of that. Eventually you find your shape and you're just there. But there's still so much entertainment. Are you then aware how you breathe? There's so much space to become aware of how you're breathing then. Are you contracting somewhere in the body? Is your inner critic playing up? And that can all be there. It's amazing. This is part of mindfulness practice, to really become aware of what is happening in every moment. But then also practice how you respond to that. Going into, I don't know, a whole conversation with your inner critic, or just observing that inner critic, or maybe asking even the inner critic, like, why are you here? Why is this playing up? Like, what is there for me to learn out of this? And then feeling that shifts that a lot of times come through a certain release in the body, a certain relief, or even emotions expressing itself when we go into that rebound. It is not unusual to feel a shift and to feel tears coming up, to feel anger coming up, to feel restlessness coming up, to getting certain visions or imagery, because this is energy in motion. And this is what we start to release out of the tissues. And this energy in motion, with that we come to this energetic rebound. And with that, I'm gonna close up our little sharing here tonight. But this energetic rebound. Before I go there, there's one more thing I'd like to say about this mindfulness layer in our practice. That there is this amazing opportunity there in that mindfulness layer, in that mindfulness part of the practice, which we find in yin, which we find in restorative, but of course we also find in other yoga practices. Only maybe we're also entertained in other ways, so we're not so fully focused there. But this mindfulness layer is where there is this opportunity as a practitioners to rewire ourselves, to come away from our conditioning and to rewire ourselves, to reinvent ourselves, to put new intentions, to work with your sankalpa, to bring in positive energy, positive thoughts, or whatever it is you want to rewire for yourself. Yes, this mindfulness layer in the practice is there for you. And then this energetic layer that is always there, And I have to say, through yin practice, I started to more connect to that energetic layer. I never found it so easy in the Hatha and Vinyasa practice to connect to the chakras, for example, the energy centers. When I was moving, I could do that easier for me personally always when I was either doing things like the bija mantra, so using sound to evoke that energy in the chakras, or through my meditation, yes. But in yin, because it's such an inward and meditative practice, it became way easier for me to connect also to this energetic layer or this energetic body. And even though scientifically this rebound is like after the squeeze, the tissues get really pulled through the body and get connected through to the matrix. This buzz I'm feeling going through my body, this is my energy. And then if we look from Chinese medicine perspective, the philosophy of Taoism and the Chinese medicine perspective that is so much related energetically to the yin yoga practice, then we talk about qi. Hatha yoga, we talk about prana. From Chinese medicine and Taoism, we talk about qi, which is this similar, same life force energy. But qi is being said that it governs all the movement of fluids in the body. Then I can question myself, and I love to question myself always around my practice. Also to do research, but my research mainly is going to my practice and really questioning, like, what is this actually what I'm feeling? How can I relate it to something? And then it's not easy to give words to energy, but if energy is this life force, then is my blood not my life force either? Is my lymph not my life force either? My blood carries oxygen and nutrients, which is giving me life. Every breath I take, I bring oxygen in the body. It binds to that blood, and that blood brings it everywhere where it's needed. So my breath is life force. My blood is life force. My lymph is life force. All the fluids in my body are my life force. Qi governs all the movement of fluids in the body. So when I can sense my blood flow, am I sensing my qi? When I sense this rush of fluids through the body, whatever it is, water, whatever it is, am I sensing my qi moving? Yes. So this is a question you might like to take into your next practice. And for giving us purpose, yes. Yeah, that's an important thing I always find. This is also something that maybe not hydrates my body so much, but hydrates my soul. You being there, knowing that there are people and eager participants and yoga students to share with, that, I like it. That hydrates my soul, which is important as well. Not only hydrating this physical, energetic body, but also hydrating my spirit. Yes. So for now, thank you. Blessings on your path. Please keep on practicing. Keep yourself healthy. And yeah, wishing you an amazing practice. Keep on doing. Which is strange. This is not what I wanted to say. I don't know how to end this. It is hard to leave you here. But yes. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.